Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to Tarot for Today, Divine Dabblings with Oberon.
And Banshee.
This is actually our ninth show, technically our second month of programming, and there's been a change or two.
A toast.
A toast. There's been a change or two. We are now transitioning to where we will be doing more of the production work, controlling the actual broadcast software and those kind of situations. So we might be a little wobbly at first, but just hang in there with us.
With the assistance still of our producer, we'll get by and get through this. And you never know, there may be some cats coming along the way to help us out. Or not.
But currently, no cats.
Well, at any rate, we already had somebody in our live stream. Bridget, are you still here? Did you have a
Bridget
question
has a
for
question.
us?
Go right ahead while we're waiting for anyone else
Yeah.
to show up.
We'll certainly talk to you now.
And of course, we're all decked out in our new array here, and we're
We got some different camera angles we're working with, and hopefully this will help a bit. But we're always going to have some to play interference with our cats, who kind of like our table.
but not quite at the moment.
Well, okay, Bridget, when you get back.
So, anyways, this is the second month of Tarot for Today,
Yes.
Divine Dabblings. And we're longtime tarot readers, but now we're here kicking it online and through YouTube. We also have a daily reading. Do you want to talk about that a
Kicking
little
it.
bit? Kicking it.
Kicking it. Well, that's awesome. Our daily readings on Facebook, we do tarot for tomorrow. So we do a reading the night before. We do a reading the night before for the next day. So you can always get a little jump start on what you might expect in the day ahead. Also, we are on Twitter, and content is being posted daily. We also did a special video yesterday that we posted to YouTube.
We actually put 2 or 3 up there.
We put two. We put two. One was a reading we did in a previous live stream about the forest fires in the Amazon.
Right, we wanted to highlight that because that has been talked about a lot in the various situations, and it's kind of good to compare the actions from a week or two later, but that was actually from our broadcast on August 22nd.
Right. And then yesterday we also did one where we discussed tarot spreads and how to create them and some of the thought processes that goes into creating spreads. I gave some experience, some information from my own personal experience in creating spreads. I've created many, and I used as an example a conflict resolution spread that I had created. So you might want to check that video out on our YouTube channel, just because you also get a glimpse at a new spread possibly that you could use in your own practices.
Yes, and as we have often referred to before, our cats, there are 3 of them, are very unofficial recurring stars or assistants to us.
Assistance.
Yet for some reason, perhaps them sensing our, first time producing mostly, they're staying away wisely.
Yeah, well, we keep trying to declutter the table so that, well, number one, that they don't knock things over, but number two, so we have room to read, and number three, they have some room to move around. So, because we don't want to discourage them completely. They're really good eye candy, I think, in a way.
Well, we may
More
have,
so than us, perhaps. You might want to look at our cats more than us.
we may have lost Bridget, who was
Yeah.
waiting just before we started. So maybe we'll just start our review. We usually do a review
Yes, we do.
of
Go ahead.
the previous few days of our cards that were featured on Tarot for Tomorrow on our Facebook page. So let's start with Friday's page or card, which was the Wheel of Fortune reversed.
Yes, it was.
And what I said was that there was this idea that there were feelings and delays, and maybe we would pin it on bad luck. But I saw the possibility that others are looking at us and evaluating us in a different light as well. And so it's the sense of the wheel losing ground as it shifts around. What did you say, Banch?
Well, I did go into that there might be a little bit of a bad luck. The wheel might be turning in, a counter direction. But to keep in mind that, this is only temporary. I mean, it's like a cycle in life in a way. There are upswings and there are downswings. And, we have to learn to roll with the flow. And we did have a rather interesting day Friday, did we not?
That's true. Do you want to talk more about
I
that?
do. For some reason, I felt that day that I'd been talking about it for over a week to Oberon that we needed to go visit my brother's grave. And for some reason, I really felt it had to be Friday, that we had to go Friday. I wanted to see the stone that was laid in for him, supposedly, and finally get over there because we hadn't been there yet since he passed in January. So I wanted to go, and I was really kind of adamant it had to be Friday. We had the day off. And when we got there, we kept looking for the plot because we hadn't been there before. And we kept looking. We couldn't find it, but we noticed there was this truck and it was digging. And I kept thinking, I bet it's in that area. It's got to be in that area over there. I can't think of anywhere else as I was looking at the numbers of the grave plots. And so finally, the truck drove away, leaving this gaping hole there. And we walked over, and sure enough, there was a little placard there with my brother's name on it. And it was like we picked the day that apparently they were digging the hole to place the stone in, which
But
sort of is a bad timing, bad luck thing, but maybe in a way it was good luck because I don't know, I almost feel like it was fortuitous that I meant to have to go there that day. And what else was special about that day, Oberon?
well, it was the exact ninth month since your brother had passed.
Yes, and 9 is a very important number to me personally. So I didn't plan that at all. I didn't even think about it. It's just see the way synchronicities and circumstances work and timing. And so that's very wheel-like.
Well, and it was certainly a drive way out of our territory. I mean, it was
Yes.
a good hour or so drive for us. But we had been under the impression that this had already been done, possibly in May. So, once again, with all the Mercury retrogrades going on, there just were some communication foibles that I guess prevented us from knowing that it actually wasn't there. We don't know the full picture. Maybe it was removed for some reason and it was going to be repaired or realigned or something
Right.
else.
Or there was some delay in putting it in the ground. I have no idea how long these things take. So at any rate,
Let's
it
move on
was
to the next card.
peculiar. So yeah, we are going to move on to the next card, but I thought that was a really good example of how, fate can be sometimes and timing and synchronicities. It all ties into the Wheel of Fortune.
So, what was that next card?
The next card is the Six of Swords upright.
Okay. And what did you want to say about that?
Well, I thought you would start this one.
Okay, well, that's the one about, moving ahead, moving beyond. There's always a little sense of escaping something that's not as pleasant. And so overall, I felt the card struck me as looking for where the grass is greener, trying to leave some problems behind. And of course, there's always the idea too that because the water is the metaphor for your unconscious or some other realm of your mental state, that it might mean that this is a move that's being generated within your mind, that your meditation or your thought about it is what is moving you towards something else.
Well, I kind of went with a little bit of the Labor Day weekend theme, and of course, it was a trip on water. So I was thinking that some of us obviously were planning maybe some last minute trips to the water before summer was over, maybe taking a boat ride, maybe traveling by water is a possibility, traveling near water, just being near water. But also, I felt on another level that maybe you're leaving, as of course, it's also a holiday weekend. You're leaving some of the stressful things in your life behind and moving on to things that could bring you a little bit more peace of mind or calmness, some serenity, perhaps.
And with that in mind, and with the water metaphor too, I suggested that maybe this was just time to have a little meditation, take some time to be with your own inner voice and try to relate to that. So let's move on to the card
Today.
for today.
Well, and today is not over yet. And So, but needless to say, it was the Ten of Pentacles reversed, and it's kind of a bad card for money and finances and things of that nature. You know what? I didn't even think of this at the time, and this is not really family related, but what did we hear was going to kick in this weekend? We heard more tariffs were going to kick in this weekend.
Ah,
And so that
yes.
might affect your investments and things like that come, well, not Monday because the markets are closed Monday, but Tuesday, there could be some potential problems. And I think I just heard this in the news today. So,
Well, that makes a lot of sense because they're expecting a lot of things to very much shift quickly in terms of prices that the consumer is going to be paying for a lot of things that had been imported, that are being imported from China, and that those things are suddenly going to go up, maybe in some cases 30%.
yeah, it's going to be
Um,
difficult.
and what I had actually said was that today would be sobering for some, and that money problem is on the horizon, and that's what it is, I guess.
Well, we did this last night, of course, and now
Yeah.
we're getting the realization today after hearing the news this morning that it could have been about that. But also, the other thing is if you're expecting money from family, if you were hoping for a bailout of some sort, either from friends, family, relatives, it may be slow in coming or not at all, unfortunately. So that was kind of the theme, I think, for the Ten of Pentacles reversed, at least as far as my interpretation went for today.
Yeah, I felt that in addition to that, if it wasn't exactly like that, it was also to the sense that maybe the person you count on is the person who fails you. And that could be for a number of reasons, not just because you were expecting some financial help, but you were expecting some sort of guidance or mentoring or something that you feel from a bond that maybe is a family bond or like unto a family bond.
Yeah. So that's our readings for the last few days. And on Thursday, when we live stream again, we'll recap our Monday through Thursday cards that we pull. And we just do this to kind of, as our audience grows too, we'd love to hear from you to find out if any of those cards resonated with you in the past few days and what your feelings were about the cards that we drew. We love feedback. We only grow from, the responses that we get from others.
Thank you. So now we're going to transition. I'm just going to take a little peek into my cards here, but we're going to have another meditation.
Oh, yeah.
And I've decided to do something a little bit differently. There we are. I'm kind of doing them in order of the journey of the Fool or the pathway that moves through the tarot. So the last card I did was the Emperor, but now I'm going to do, the Hierophant, which is card 5. And I'm getting used to the new camera angles. I'm going to move them in a little bit. Not bad. And so I want everybody to take a moment and relax. We're going to be dealing with the energies of this card. It's going to be kind of different and interesting in a way. So take a breath.
Hold
Close
on
your
one
eyes.
second. I just wanted to let our audience know that we will be happy to take questions after the meditation is complete.
Thank you. Now, if you breathe with me and relax, and we're going to do this in an abbreviated manner as possible because I believe we're all conditioned to that sense of how the flow works. But within our minds and our hearts is a golden cauldron that represents the collective unconscious. And so take a moment and visualize that in our minds and see that wondrous water of the cauldron swirling around. And we are going down with it into those depths of the subconscious. And now that water is rising up out of the cauldron, moving upwards to the crucible, the fire in our heart chakra. And as it hits that, it becomes a steam that moves upward even more, moving into our head and crown chakras and illuminating us and opening our mind to visions. And so now, if you're still with me, we begin our meditation. And see yourself in the very most quietest of places. And as we do that, we are going to visualize a meadow and feel the blowing air, just quiet. And I will intone that. And what I want us to do, we are going to move through 4 different landscapes that all represent a silence with barely a sound. And what happens is I want you to focus on the chime, but I want you to also hold for that moment of silence that begins after that. So we are moving through a meadow of delicate looking clover and other small grass-like plants, and just feel that gentle breeze blowing by as we feel the circuit of air. And that moment of silence. And now we move to the most quiet mountaintops. Nothing stirs at all, not even a breeze. But we feel that unparalleled moment of brilliant, burning sunlight upon us, and feeling that heat of the solar flame of fire, the energy of fire. And as we hear that chime, hold for that moment of silence afterwards. And then we move to another landscape of a small stream running through a grassy forest. And we can barely hear that stream, so quiet is the water running. But there it is. And we listen to that chime again and wait for the moment of silence thereafter. And at last, we move to a dark, possibly cold, but very quiet cave. And we feel the element of earth and rock all around us, in total silence. Silence, no air breezing by, no trickles of water quietly in the background. Just the quiet of stone. And then the moment of silence. And what I'm wanting out of all of this is for us to listen to silence. For in silence, we learn to open up our hearts and hear more than we do with listening with our mind. And so there he is, the Hierophant. And in his hands he holds a bunch of white lilies and a bunch of red roses to tell us, to remind us that while the white lilies represent our intellect and our thought processes, we also have our heart, as illustrated by the red roses. And we need to balance both of those so that we learn, listen, and appreciate on all levels. So I want us to return now. Take a few short breaths and ground yourself, and come back to all and to now, and take the lessons of the Hierophant with you. And that is our meditation for today.
Wow. Awesome. Do you know what? I don't know what was going on there, but the back of my head, I was feeling really tingly.
It must have been the chimes.
Oh, maybe.
And if you realize, we went through the 4 elements in 4 different landscapes, and we
Very
felt the
good.
quiet of different elements.
So, can you tell me how that relates to the Hierophant?
Well, that's his ultimate message, is to learn to listen with our heart as much or more than how we listen with our mind.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Nice meditation.
Thank
So,
you.
just to remind our audience, we do have programming, but if there are people who are interested in readings or have a question, feel free to chime in the chat and we'll be happy to address them.
We're definitely ready to take on some questions to possibly lighten the mood here. I got a lot out of that myself too, and I'm going to be doing additional, possibly longer guided meditations as a special YouTube features that we'll put out there, extra content that won't be attached to our live programming. I'm hoping to have a really great one for Halloween, and also for the fall equinox, where I will talk or bring us in meditation to what those deepest messages of the season are actually about, or at least how I see them.
If we have no questions, we can move on to your reading for the week ahead. This is
Okay.
Oberon's turn to do his tarot reading.
How about moving those away
I can move them away now.
to the front there?
Absolutely. Just a little ambiance, but now the cards will replace them.
Yes.
And so your reading is
Body, mind, and spirit.
3-card reading, and sometimes you throw a
Sometimes I
fourth.
throw a fourth if things just seem to be unresolved. So we're thinking of our body, mind, and spirit for the entire audience and for the week ahead till next Sunday or so. Go ahead and shuffle
Okay,
too.
I will. That's because we are a team.
And when you're ready, you can go ahead and cut.
All right, I am ready.
Our next live stream will be next Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We know that people might be out celebrating the holiday today. We figured we might have a little low attendance today, so I hope everybody is enjoying themselves.
The body, mind, and spirit for our audience for this next week. The first card, once again, we're getting a little familiar here.
Oh my.
We have the reversed Wheel of Fortune. And this suggests to me strongly that the next week we're going to feel cycles more acutely. There's going to be more ups and downs. I don't see anything as being totally negative, but I think that some of us may feel we're encountering a little more, I won't say bad luck, but little unforeseen things, snafus, delays, upsets. For those who maybe are working routinely with luck in their life, trying to invoke luck, it is possible that maybe the sense of bad luck will be more prevalent. Banshee?
Yeah, so this is on the physical level, and so I do believe it's a period where you could be taking some steps in a backward kind of direction, where, you know, instead of moving forward, we're moving back for some reason. And it could indicate delays, it could indicate setbacks. So it's not necessarily a happy thing, but sometimes the wheel turns in that direction for a reason. Maybe you need to take that step back in order to move forward. You know, what is it? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes that's necessary in the process.
So moving along, the next card in Body, Mind, Spirit is the mind, and that represents our mental state during this week, things we might be concerned with mentally and otherwise. And we're getting our old friend again, the Six of Swords. I don't know, maybe we're not
interesting.
shuffling good, but I think we are actually, because we've been doing it for years. And the Six of Swords in our mentality, well, that says we are really concerned about possible journeys. We're thinking a lot about getting away. Some of it is about leaving a situation behind. It could just be in general the idea of journeying towards something that we presume to be better.
Well, here it is in the mental level now. And so, yeah, we might be pulling some of the same cards, but it's in different contexts. And
Hmm.
so, what I would say about this being on the mental level is that mentally, you are moving away from something. Maybe it's some disenchantment in your life. You're moving away from an unfulfilling relationship. You're moving away from an unfulfilling job. You're really trying to mentally distance yourself from something,
That's
and
what it looks
hopefully
like,
for
yes.
something better.
So the third card is spirit in the body, mind, spirit. And of course, that may hold the key here or not. And it's the Nine of Swords reversed.
Oh,
And I'm going to let you go first if you don't mind.
absolutely. So, see, it almost ties in with the Wheel of Fortune in a way. Actually, all of this, if you come and think about it. And the Nine of Swords reversed is a card that is a card a bit of healing. It's kind of like you want to recover from something that was some major disappointments or things that caused you grief. And keep in mind with the Nine of Swords, I think more than, at least this is in my opinion, more than the Three of Swords, I think the Nine of Swords sometimes says that this grief could be self-imposed, that maybe you're putting too much into the situation, and that you're being too hard on yourself, or you're being too hard on the situation itself and your outlook on it, and that maybe it's not as bad as it seems. At any rate, there seems to be some type of recovery and process, and I'll leave it at that until we recap, I think.
Right. I mean, I see pretty much the same thing that there is, because this is about the spirit, there is a sense really of thinking what you need to do to heal your spirit. Your spirit is calling for that. And this is telling you or reminding you that you have to be aware of other people's suffering as a part of your own growth, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. Are you going to draw another card, or are you leaving it at that?
I think I could leave it at that. What do you think? Should I draw another card?
I think you should leave it at that. I
I do
do.
too.
And let's just recap it now. And
Okay.
so, what I'm seeing on a physical level is maybe a journey away from something. And,
No,
now,
this is the physical level.
no, the first card was.
That's the first card. I put them this way. One, two,
Oh,
three.
that's right. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Sorry, I forgot how he laid them out. My apologies. Okay, you're right. On the physical level was the Wheel of Fortune reversed. And so basically, it shows some setbacks and delays, you taking a step back from things. Maybe it's even a step back from life, taking some time off so you can reassess and, rebuild something here. And on the mental level, you are mentally distancing yourself from something that maybe has been painful or is no longer pertinent in your life. It's time to move on, is maybe the attitude here on a mental level. And here in the spiritual level, to reinforce that is this feeling of healing and letting go of things that may have hurt you, and also the fact that maybe you realize you've been dwelling on some of these situations too much. They're taking too much of your time and energy, and they're draining you on a spiritual level. And so it's time to heal yourself and move away from that and shift your focus away from that.
Yeah, I mean, that would mostly be my summation. There's the idea here that you're going to experience some ups and downs here, and maybe that's what informs your mind to take that break, to just sort of leave it behind. If too much just seems to be coincidental, but not in a good way, then it's like time to take a mental break, move yourself away from that, address some other issues that maybe are more important. And because there is sort of the sense of
Yeah.
sorrow in that card, it sort of carries over to this one because, of course, it is another sword. But in terms of where your spirit really needs, maybe through these things you identify that it's spiritual solace that you need to find, and that's where you need to work at. And maybe also too, it's also the idea too that you can best be useful by helping somebody else rather than just worrying about them.
Very good. Very good. And you know how I feel about the Six of Swords, because it's got a lot of symbology in there that the waters that you seem to be leaving behind look rather rough, and it looks like you're moving to smoother, calmer waters ahead. So they are, there's so much symbology in the tarot cards, the numerology, everything to take into account. And sometimes you just go where your intuition takes you.
And because it's the 6 and the 9, and they're sort of like similar, they sort of bookend each other, and they were reversed. They sort of see this bookending thing here too, the journey away from sorrow, but still needing to deal with that on a very inner spiritual level. And the Wheel of Fortune is just sort of there providing the energy of up and downing that maybe will force the event to happen. Just another way of looking at it, I suppose. And once again, although we lost the person who showed up before we actually started, if they do show up, we'll be happy to answer questions. But anybody can go ahead and think of a question right now and answer us.
Yes.
If not, we're going to probably just
We will
maybe
answer.
do a question for ourselves. Like, I'm thinking, will our next 2 days be productive and fun?
Our next 2 days? Why
That
2?
we have off
Oh,
before we have to go back to work.
that's right. So this is a personal cue. Well, I'm definitely going to pull. Oh,
Well, that's healing in a way, though.
it's healing. Well, this is, remember we have the Nine of Swords. This is the other card of which I spoke. It's the Three of Swords. And this one is reversed. And I feel like there's a healing process going on here. It's going to be maybe, we really feel like we just need some downtime, some serious downtime, don't you think?
I definitely need the
de-stress?
downtime. It just seems.
Do you think the hot tub's in order at the health club?
Ooh, that sounds nice. But in my muggle-ish life, I recently put up a display of dolls at a place that we patronize. They kind of let us do that, and they like it a lot. And if Shining Soul is out there, I know you're heading off to Fashion Week, so I thought about a little tribute to Fashion Week in my display. Let me know if you want to know more information about that picture. Basically, I took one of my vintage Barbies, which I inherited from
Me?
you, and I redressed it in a design made by a third-party Barbie clothes producer called Joe Tai, who created a fashion called Fashion Week, and it was in honor of Fashion Week. So that hot little number is on display at my local business nearby, and I took a picture. Doesn't do justice to seeing it live, but just wanted to mention that.
Well, yes, and that Barbie, as a matter of fact, is I think from the second run ever created of Barbies. So
Yeah, Barbie was
that
from
very
58
vintage.
or 59.
I think 58.
So your
first
Barbie would be
one.
from 59 then.
Yeah, I
the second year.
believe so.
And I remember somebody I know who had one right around there too, 58 or 59, and hers was also well played with. And she sold it on the original eBay back when eBay first opened for like around $800. I don't think you can do that on eBay now with something that was extremely well played with. But I actually spent a bit of time restoring Barbie because not because of anything that Banshee had done, although I heard about some of that stuff and it was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Go and tell us about that.
Well, I was a kid. I was never much to play with dolls as dolls. I would be doctor or nurse with dolls, and so they needed shots, and so I stuck them with pins and needles because they needed shots. I was trying to heal them, honest. I
Voodoo
wasn't being a
Barbie doll.
torturer of dolls,
Voodoo
but
Barbie doll.
one might wonder.
We could do a show on that. But at any rate,
At any rate,
the
enough
real-
about dolls. Oh, you want to
Okay.
go ahead?
Well, I
One
was
more?
just going to say that the real problem for the restoration wasn't anything that she had done to her Barbie doll. It was the fact that over
Oh,
time,
yeah.
there's these little metal studs in the ears, and they tarnish, and it kind of turns the vinyl area
Green.
greenish color. And it's a slow process to bleach or leach all of that back out. But I managed to do that, so that's why I'm able to display Ms. Vintage Barbie, and thank you very much.
Why, no problem. At any rate, so I've been doing readings lately on the hurricane down in the, down in the Bahamas now, I believe it's at, and I'm so worried about the Bahamas. But I also want to focus on the U.S. proper and see where it's going to hit or not. And I'm going to do a yes/no to find out if the U.S. at all is going to get a direct hit from this hurricane. It's been so ambiguous thus far. The one thing that I've gotten out of readings I have done and that I've shared in the past live stream
Deal over
and
this way because that's better for the camera.
anyway, I don't think they need to see me shuffle, but the thing is that the one thing I've noticed in the previous and live streams when I was doing my readings is that it seems as though this is going to be more a water event, which I wonder if it was just hugging the shoreline, if that would mean there would be more storm surge or rainfall rather than a wind event per se on the shore. I'm not a Floridian, and I've never been through a hurricane, so I don't want to make any preconceived judgments here. But I really am concerned about this storm. It's so big, and some alarm bells have been going off in my brain. So I'm going to ask a yes/no question to find out if it is in fact going to have a direct hit somewhere in the United States. Do you want to shuffle? Yeah, it's been very ambiguous, as they say, and it almost looks like it could hit multiple times, or it might not hit at all. By the sounds of it lately, it seems like the course is veering slightly off from the U.S., so that there will be ramifications, but not necessarily, yes, you may, a direct hit.
Now, I just want to remind you that I actually wasn't talking about you shuffling. I was saying deal the cards here.
I was going to do that, of course.
So you misheard me.
I got, okay. Oh boy.
Oh boy, indeed. So our first pile had the, whoops.
We're just getting used to our new camera angles and our producer.
The Ace of Wands, who has abandoned us. No, he hasn't.
No, I mean, and we're doing the producing, so it would bear with us.
Our second card was the Ace of Cups, which was upright as well.
Now, those two indicate a probable yes, that we are leaning towards a hit on the United States. I am looking at that.
Five of Coins reversed.
It's reversed, which makes me think, I'm hoping I'm right about this, that maybe it won't be as severe a damage, physical damage to property as it could have been, because it's reversed. I don't know how you feel about that. Do you look at the reversal as better or worse?
Can you say the question again?
Would there be a direct hit of the hurricane to the United States?
Well, technically, it's more likely yes. But what this card means to me, ooh.
Is it better or worse to you when it's reversed?
It's better. It just may mean that there will be more resources for people. More resources will be available or accessible for most people.
But you feel that maybe there could be less loss of property?
It could mean that as well.
See, that's where I was going with that. I see what you're saying as well, that help will be on the way. But it does seem as, I'm just hopeful that that is true. But I do feel very, very bad for, the people in the Bahamas right now, and they're in my thoughts, and I hope everybody keeps them in their thoughts.
Amen.
So very interesting reading, and we'll just see how things develop. I normally don't read about storms, but in recent years, I have had some, how should I say, intuitions that have come to me through other sources about natural disasters like tsunamis or the New Orleans, the Katrina. When that hit New Orleans, I had dreams, so things came to me in dreams. And so it's been on my mind to try to do a little bit more prognostication with the storms. Hello, Elaine. Is it Eleni?
Hi there. You may ask any sort of question you wish.
You absolutely can.
And we are glad you are joining us today.
Welcome. And while we wait, we can shuffle the cards. Do you want to use your cards?
Yeah, we'll use our cards. You can put those aside.
Ask your question anytime.
You're welcome. And I'm a little sniffly. I was almost thinking I should ask my producer to bring me some Kleenex. Oh, wait, I'm my own producer. So I guess that's not going to work out very well. But I'll just struggle through it. Naturally, of course, I would turn the cam off. How does George feel about you?
Okay.
TP. How does George feel about you? So Eleni has joined the program and has asked us, how does George feel about you? What kind of reading should we do with this? 3-card, several
Well,
card?
I have a 3-card reading we could do. That's first off, it would be Eleni's attitude towards George, and then George's attitude towards Eleni, and where things are headed. Why don't we try that to begin with, if that's okay with you, Eleni?
All right. Go ahead and shuffle those.
I will shuffle. Let's see what we get.
Okay. Eleni agrees with that idea that you said.
Okay. I'm going to focus on the question. Did you shuffle?
I did.
And I will cut.
There's a bathroom right there. Just pull the toilet paper.
Okay.
This is so embarrassing. We don't have Kleenex.
Could you pick up the... Actually, we do. It should be over there. We had
Well,
a
I
box.
figured that would be the easiest.
That's
Do you want
okay.
me to pull the cards? I think you should, since
I
you know
will
the
pull the
pattern.
cards. Okay, our very first card is about your attitude towards George. And I sense here there are some worries about...
It's the 9 of Pentacles reversed.
do you want to go into that?
Okay, so what is the position supposed to be?
This is Eleni's attitude towards George.
Okay, that maybe possibly you've been living on your own or not necessarily in as comfortable a manner as you would like, and so possibly you're wondering if living with him or somehow being more in that orbit is more beneficial to you.
I was kind of going to go that route, but not with living. I was going to say that maybe you're concerned as to whether things will be better or not with George. Maybe you do feel they might be, but you obviously have questions about his feelings. So I think that, there's a lot of concern about whether this is the right direction to go or not, or even if it makes sense for you in some way. This is interesting because I've got this card for him and his feelings towards you. Is he very focused on his business or his financial life right now? Maybe some creative pursuits? Is he more focused on that in his life?
For me, what I see here too is that maybe he's somebody who is compellingly magnetic in certain ways, and it may be that he's enjoying the status of just being attractive on a larger scale. It doesn't mean he's playing the field or anything like that, but it could just be that he hasn't really thought necessarily about where he sees any of that going.
Yeah, I think he's very focused on himself right now, to be honest with you, or maybe some concerns in his personal life. And I'm thinking it's more in terms of either career or something growthful, as far as maybe even education to some degree. But I see it more in career. And then where the relationship may be heading. Well, I would say right now, don't give up on this, the potential here.
It sounds really, this card is often held to for Sage Pretel that there is some sort of nuptial celebration, or there is some sort of
Marriage,
engagement situation happening.
a
So
bonding of
so
some
I don't know if
sort.
that's ultimately what you're hoping for, because you don't really say that, but we can kind of assume that. Most questions are about relationships, and so I'm thinking this is a good sign here.
Well, I think it's a very positive sign for whatever type of relationship you would like to have with George. Yeah, there may be some time involved because I think he's got to get through whatever he's working out in his personal life or career life or educational life right now. He's really focused on his own concerns, it seems to me. But the outlook for a possible relationship here is very positive.
Well, I don't totally agree with you on the king, though, because while I'm not going to say that doesn't include that, I also think too that what is a king without possibility of thinking about who that queen will be? So it is, it is that possibility too, that what you're perceiving from the position of not feeling connected to him in some manner or something like that, is that maybe he doesn't really feel the same way, but maybe perhaps his thoughts are just a little bit harder for you to pick up on now, and that's why you came to us, of course. So we're thinking that this kind of looks good. It just might need a little more time. I'll agree with Banshee. He is probably resolving some not issues, more like projects or goals.
I'll tell you what, Eleni, I am going to just draw a couple of cards from my Lenormand and see if they offer a little bit more insight into things regarding the relationship. Sometimes they
So it
help.
sounds like you agree with what our assessment was. You'll have to let us know how it works out in the future. What you got?
Well, I think that it's interesting here. I've got the number 11, which is the rope. I also got, or whip. I also have number 35, which is the anchor. It's really interesting to me because these are very opposite cards on some level. The anchor often indicates stability, and it can also mean slowness, like things are happening at a slower pace, whereas the rope is kind of a quick, aggressive kind of energy. Sometimes it can mean arguments or quarrels, but what I think this is saying here is maybe somebody wants things to happen faster than the other person. I'm really sensing that in some way.
As you mentioned at the beginning, this is the Lenormand deck, and I don't have a lot of familiarity at all with that deck, but I do work with symbols a lot, and I'm sort of feeling what Banshee is saying there, that the whip sort of indicates maybe more of a faster pace and maybe sort of wanting to be more in charge. I'll just admit that. Whereas the anchor sort of, to me, is a connection, but it's also a weighted connection too. And so it could be the two sides of that, that one person is indeed wanting to, consider things at a slower pace. I won't say a glacial pace, I'll say an under depth pace of some sort. And the other person is perhaps ready to move ahead.
Yeah, so keep that in mind, and also let us know. Absolutely,
Elaine says she would.
feel free to subscribe to our site because we will be live streaming twice weekly, and we will be doing free readings on our site. Eventually we get to the point where we may add readings for cost or donation, but we will always be doing some shorter free readings live.
And it's always a good point to mention, too, that in addition to going to our Facebook page to get a message about the day or the following day, you can also leave us a message there. We have an inbox there.
Well, Eleni, that's
Thank you so much. We appreciate that, Eleni.
Yes,
But
and
you can also go to our Facebook page and leave a message there, and we can get back to you. Or you can write us at Gmail, TFT Tarot for today.
I wanted to comment on what she said here, and
Go ahead.
basically, you're an Aries. I too am an Aries, Eleni. I am born pretty close though to the Taurus cusp, so and my rising sign is Gemini. So yeah, and so I'm familiar with Tauruses as well intimately because my mother was a Taurus, and so yes, that can be a very interesting combination. I'd say Aries and Taurus in a relationship.
Are your birthdays closer together than not? I mean, you're more toward I don't know where you are in Aries. I don't know where he is in Taurus. So I know, for example, with Banshee, she's close to that cusp as you just
Hmm.
mentioned. Some of that makes a difference, you know. So, for example, the March Aries are a
Yes,
little different from the
April
April
Aries.
Aries, and likewise, I would assume with Tauruses too. They start off in May, but then they end up, or no, they start off in
Surfing,
April,
yes.
and then they end up in May. And I've known both. One of my siblings is a May Taurus, and our relationship tends to be more on the level of stubbornness at times, you know. But
Well, fire can scorch that earth sometimes, I have to say. And also when you mentioned that he is much slower than you, that is kind of the nature of a Taurian.
it is the
You are
nature.
describing that.
And he's right at the end of Taurus too, so he may be
Okay.
possibly having a little bit of Gemini qualities. Hard to say for sure.
April
He is
2nd
stubborn.
and May 19th. My mother was born May 17th, by the way. And it's interesting because we parallel each other because whenever my birthday is on a certain day, my mother's birthday is on that day. So if my birthday is on a Friday, hers ends up being on a Friday, which is kind of interesting. But
Tauruses are universally stubborn. I don't think there's a difference between an April or a May Taurus in that regard.
I agree.
I still really relate strongly to them, probably because my own sign is Scorpio, and so that water earth antiphony is sort of there, you know, and I can relate to them. In fact, because I'm actually opposite 6 months on the zodiac,
Hmm.
I sort of feel like I'm a dark twin of a Taurus in a way, you know, or Taurus is my dark twin. I don't know if we go either way there.
Yeah, so hang in there. No, hey, every relationship has their, ups and downs or their struggles in relating to each other. Even some of the signs that seem to go together the best, they have to work at it too. So I just hang in there because right now, at least according to the cards that we're seeing, the outlook looks very positive in the long term, I'd say.
It really does to me as well. So we're wishing only the best for you, and we appreciate you trusting us enough to ask this rather personal question. So thank you,
Yes, thank
Elaine.
you very
Thank you for
much.
subscribing.
Okay, so we're
So
going
now we
to
have
pick
time
up those
to
cards.
maybe talk a little more about our discussion.
Oh, we have a discussion topic today.
Yes.
Well, I have a couple things down there. I don't know what you'd rather tackle, but
Um, you're welcome, Elaine. Thank you.
I was thinking in terms of talking about, you know, there's a lot of hard there's a lot of things the tarot can do and some things that the tarot can't do. And one thing I've always heard is that the tarot really is not a predictor of death or things of that nature. And so when you see the death card and some of the scary cards in the tarot, I mean, a lot of people get very frightened, but they're not really, we don't really predict death in the tarot per se.
Yes, and it's hard to say because we do know that tarot cards were the original form of cards, at least as far as how they evolved into the modern suit,
Hmm.
more or less. The modern suit of cards with its aspects of fortune telling, especially in the last 100 or so years, more actually, kind of lent itself to that whole operatic convention, you know,
Hmm.
the ace of spades, dun, 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 you're gonna die, someone's gonna
Well,
die.
let's talk about that because
Exactly.
I come from a background where there was a lot of, I don't know what you want to call it, more gypsy style fortune telling, very old school methods where, a lot of people, I mean, the concerns back in the day were more about illness and death and births and dying. And people even today have a lot of questions about, am I going to have a boy? Am I going to have a girl? Will I stay healthy? I may have I have a disease. They say I only have 3 months to live. There's a lot of these kind of weighted questions, and how do we handle them as psychics and readers? And I don't know that there's any one really good answer other than when we read tarot, it's not likely as much to come up. But when I dabble with some of my other fortune telling devices, such as the Lenormand, such as regular decks of playing cards and things of that nature, that could come up. And I don't think I would ever tell a person personally that they are going to die. I would not do that because I do think there's ethics involved. And of course, we are not doctors. So even if I were to tell you something very bad or fateful, I would definitely not be giving you medical advice and just tell you that you need to seek out a doctor, to confirm anything at all. We are not doctors. We have limits to what we can tell you. We can get impressions that maybe you do need to see a doctor. And that I think is more important is, maybe that's it. That I would be more focusing on what you need to look into, that there might be a health problem or something that you need to check out, as opposed to saying, oh my gosh, you're going to die. But sometimes we can see that there may be a death around you, that somebody might be passing near you and things of that nature. And I do feel that's something that maybe we need to share. I would never want to, say that it is a specific person or anything like that, but I may say it's some close family. It might be a friend. If you're concerned about somebody's health, it might be valid. So that's, I think, how I would handle that. Sorry, I want to let you get
No,
a
that's
word in.
okay. It leads into the idea of sugarcoating, and I think we talked about this off
Yeah, that's our
camera
second topic.
a few weeks ago. The idea that maybe sometimes we intentionally or otherwise don't want to necessarily say the worst thing because we want to be hopeful. And there is that whole idea too that there's a difference, a dichotomy between reading for a client, even if they're a new client who's sitting across from you, and how you're relating to that, as opposed to reading online for somebody. And there's a difference with that to some degree, your mind, your intuitive abilities are possibly working harder, but are they really achieving the same effect? When you have that rapport with the person who's across from you, you may sense deeper things there. You may, but you may also do that too with something like this that's more personal, because your intuition really has to work a little harder to achieve that connection.
Right, right. Well, and the thing is, as far as it goes, sugarcoating, sometimes it's true. What I like to do when I get bad cards for people is I really got to tell it like I feel it is, whether it's good or bad, you got to hear it. It's come up for a reason, and you need to know some of these hard truths. Reading for ourselves, for example, it's very easy sometimes, for people who are just starting out with the cards to like look at things, oh, that doesn't apply to me, or to try to make a negative a positive, oh, that doesn't apply to me, that must be somebody else around me, rather than facing the cold hard truth of the situation. And so sometimes we need to do that, and I need to tell you that. But also I feel obligated on some levels that if I can find a solution for you, or if I do see a silver lining there, or something that you may learn from the situation, then I do feel that, I'm going to include that as well. So I think we have to be careful not to sugarcoat what we see, but to offer options and solutions if there is a negative thing that you are facing in yourself or in your life.
And I think that's important to bring out. I also think too that realistically speaking, my personal philosophy is that there are very few cards that to me actually say that, from how I understand the card, that say physical death. And one of them is not the death card itself from the major arcana. I think there are times where, because of the way that reading was employed, how the context actually worked out, it has said that to me. But as a general rule, that card speaks more about other things going on in a person's life that relate
Absolutely.
to struggles, changes, stagnation, things of that sort. Whereas when you get to the card, the Ten of Swords,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot more clarity about what that actually means. It does absolutely, in my mind, seem to represent a strong chance of physical harm, grave harm or injury to a person.
Well, there are cards in the Lenormand as well that are very, hard cards with hard lessons. I don't know sometimes what is worse is the coffin card, or a card that's called the crossings or the cross card, number 36, the final card in the Lenormand, because they both are cards of death or endings. Sometimes one seems more final than the other. And so what if you get that card next to something like the dog, which is a friend or possibly someone close? What if you get it next to a child card? I mean, there are decisions you have to make, and of course, there's a lot of nuance and context depending on the questions you're being asked. So, I'm just going to say that I'm here to really speak those truths, and I come from a tradition of where these things are vital. You know, the everyday life concerns of people matter, and I think that's what we see when we get questions from you, our audience. You want to know if so and so is falling in love with you, or if you should stay with this person. You want to know if somebody is cheating on you. You want to know if somebody is ill. You really want these facts. You want to know if there's a child in your future. So, we're here to at least try to give some advice, but remember, take it in context. These things are not necessarily fated. You can change your fate. You can always change your fate. These cards just show trends and possibilities. You yourself are going to determine how your future transpires.
From the context of, popular fiction, science fiction or fantasy or things like that, there's always this idea of parallel worlds that are based on the path taken that was different, the different paths that can be taken. And so the idea that even when it's coming from somebody like us, or maybe one of our cohorts out there in the tarot world, the idea that it is gospel is not truth, because your awareness now, your internalization of what we gave you allows you your free will to say, no, I'm not going to cross the street now because that car is coming down and I know about it now. We're not that good intuitively, but I've heard of people that are that good intuitively. Mm-hmm. Supposedly my grandmother many years ago, before or around the time my mother was born, has a story about how she was...
You might want to get on camera.
Yeah, that's true. I should want to do that. You're right.
As we are learning to produce our own streams here, we have to learn to change camera angles.
It figures that I've been excellent up until now, but the one time that I want to talk, you're going to tell me, oh.
Do you know what I should have done? I should have done, I should have kept my mouth moving like it was me talking, being like the ventriloquist.
Well, there you go. we speak each other's language, I suppose. But at any rate, my grandmother once went to a fortune teller around the time my mom was born. And the fortune teller said, oh, you're going to be in a horrible accident. And my grandmother said, oh, you're full of shit, or something like that. Walked out the door, got in the car with my grandfather, went down the road, and then somehow they hit another vehicle and they ended up on their roof. They ended up tipping over and spinning around. And she always used to tell us that story when we were kids. So...
Well, conversely, I've had a couple of friends who really wanted me to tell cards a lot. This was, I think, in my early college years, many years ago. And so my friend wanted me to shuffle, to do a reading for her friend. And she didn't like the way the cards looked. She knew enough because I read for her all the time. She didn't like the way the tarot cards looked. And I saw something very negative there that I thought could indicate some physical harm. And I was about to get into it, and she scattered the cards and said she wasn't focusing. Let her shuffle again. And I hate to say this, not that it would have changed anything necessarily, but 3 months after that, that person was involved in a very serious car accident and had to go through months of rehabilitation after that accident. And I think some of those things were definitely shown in the cards there.
I think I have to clarify something I said a little bit earlier, and I meant this more about ourselves, that we would never say we don't actually honestly feel that we are that, what I have often called drop dead psychic.
Gifted?
So psychic, so gifted that we are 99.9% right about what we say. Right. I would never feel that way about us. But at the same time, I would never deny that there may be individuals like that. And of course, those are the individuals that do charge top dollar for one, but also are highly sought after in general.
Well, but that doesn't play, I certainly think that I'm very intuitive, mm-hmm. and we channel that intuitive through the cards that we read for you. I don't usually do psychometry in that I don't hold objects or I don't read people without the cards. I need some medium to work with, and my medium is the cards or other fortune-telling style devices. I've used stones. I've used a variety of ways of reading for people.
Okay. And before we go any further, I should mention that we are now just a few minutes into our second and final hour.
Yes.
We've enjoyed being here, but if you're out there somehow, please do consider asking us for a
Yes.
reading. Now is not a bad time.
Ask a question anytime, and we'll be happy to do a quick reading for you.
So things that are ahead in this next hour will include Banshee's question deck, fun with that, as well as our usual fantasy forecast, simulated tarot readings.
And I have today a blast from the past. We're going to be talking about some of the history of, and how should I say, the evolution of the Magic 8 Ball over the years. So,
And that's exciting. And you've actually done a variation on that program a couple of times at different venues. And
Right.
people are definitely interested in the old school stuff.
yes,
it's very
it's
exciting.
kind of old school but new school. It's how it's evolved in time. Unfortunately, I no longer have the very first Magic 8 Ball, which was not an 8 ball, but we will discuss that. But right now, we want to have some fun with the question deck, don't we? And if
Absolutely.
anybody is watching us and they want to participate as well and give us their own thoughts on this, feel free. But what we do is I've created a question deck, and what we do is generally we pick a question from the top of the pile, and then we spread out the tarot cards in a pile below us here and on the table, and we draw a card and we try to answer the question from the question deck. And I think you'll get the idea as we go along. We try to use the symbology of the tarot, our intuition or creative imaginations, combined with the symbology on the tarot and the images to answer the question presented to us. And we'll show the cards to the audience, so if you want to participate as well and we can hear what you think on the chat, that'd be great. Okay, this is a very interesting one. Can I get a look at a possible past life?
So do you think this question pertains more to yourself then?
Well, maybe. Or how about we just say, well, looking at the card, what kind of past life would this reveal? If we were reading for someone, okay? What would we tell them about a past life from the image we see on the cards? Oh boy, this is a challenging one. Oh, very interesting. I drew the 8 of Cups upright. And so what I would say, if I could start,
Go ahead.
I think this person is somebody who throughout their lives may have been suffering from a bit of, maybe not so much suffering, but maybe they had a bit of wanderlust. They kept moving from one thing to the next, possibly one location to the next. Maybe they lived a rather nomadic existence.
Well, for me, I would say that it might have been a person who had the typical midlife change too. That's a possibility. Somebody who just changed streams abruptly or somewhat strangely or differently than normal. Somebody who really made a break with an old life and went to a new life. It could just be maybe that it was more of a minor decision to do that. Or maybe to me it represents more of a shift.
If I had to pick maybe some type of past life experience, I'm not sure what time frame this would be, but this could maybe be some type of minstrel or entertainer, because the cups are kind of creative cards. Maybe somebody who was a bard, perhaps, who went from place to place to perform.
And for me, the possibility is more in a modern context that I could say that maybe this card is really maybe somebody who learned that money wasn't everything and so abandoned
that's
some
true.
wealth. So in the modern era, that could be somebody who was some sort of more ruthless capitalist and then realized that when they needed it the most, money couldn't help them. And so they decided to go back to school, go to the Peace Corps, go to social work, go to something that was more helpful. But those are equally valid past lives, so why not?
That was really pretty good, actually. I like that. So I'm going to put that on the bottom. We're just going through this. I don't even look at them in advance. We're going to try another one. Unless anybody else has any comments about that they'd like to share, we're going to move on to another question. Oh, here's an interesting one. How can one turn dreams into reality? What does one need to do to turn their dreams into reality? I'll let you pick the card this time, Mr. O.
Alrighty.
Oh,
By boldly going.
by boldly going where no man has gone before.
Okay, if reality is about, figuring out what enterprise you're involved in life, then the knight represents somebody who feels very confident, but is also somebody that we ourselves would feel we could trust them and that we would follow their lead, their initiative. So this is saying that you are that person. You are that Knight of Wands. You are the person who can boldly go forward and perhaps figure out what it is you need to do to challenge those things in life that will reflect on what your goals are, to set up the enterprise, to set up business, to set up points of attraction between yourself and people who you will network with. So maybe it's just about creating a chain of friendship. Maybe it is about something more.
Well, I kind of feel like, yes, that the knight is also saying that, in order for turning your dreams into reality, you can't just sit there and dream about them. Maybe the Page of Cups could kind of fall into that a little bit, but the Knight of Cups is ready to rush right in and do something about it. You have to do something. You have to take those steps and move in order to make, to bring it into reality and into fruition. I like that.
Yeah, I like that one. That one felt really good.
Yeah, so that was another cool one. Do we have time for one more?
We probably do.
Let's see how we're doing here. Yes, we have time. And like I said, if anybody else has joined our live stream and if you have a question for us, we'll be happy to stop what we're doing and answer your question. Okay, let's see. Okay, we answered
Discard
this
that
one
one.
already. We're discarding that one. The question was who will be the next president, and
had
that
to
is
say
just too early for that.
Oh, you had to say
Obviously, that didn't get to the bottom of the pile. Oh, well, I feel like a god or goddess when... Maybe we should both draw a card for that one so that we can...
I feel like a god or goddess when stuff happens. What kind of stuff?
When... Why don't you draw your own card for this one, I think. Okay, I feel like a goddess when I drew a very masculine-oriented card for this one, but also it's kind of the card of Aries in a way because it's the Emperor and he's got rams on his throne.
But the Emperor is also the card for Scorpio because, of course, some of that symbology is Mars, and Mars is one of the ruling planets for Scorpio.
I'm sorry, I rule here. And as goddess, certainly I feel like I'm goddess when I am in control.
I have an astrology
When
book
I
just
am-
over there that says that that's also my card as a Scorpio.
When I am master of all I see. So bow to me,
I
Mr.
just
O.
have to figure out how to get you off of the camera. Let's see. Maybe that'll do it. Just for now.
Hey.
No, it was time to
Okay,
remind
I
everybody.
knew
we're
this
on
was a bad
Facebook.
idea, putting him in control of the live stream. I just knew.
I am in power here. And
What do you have?
as befits a semi-ambiguous personality, I have pulled the reversed Page of Swords.
Oh.
So I'm feeling like a god or goddess when I'm out of control, or no, maybe when I'm extremely untacky, ungraceful, and definitely not diplomatic.
When you are when you are not being
Scorpionic.
politically correct. How about that?
When I'm being my
This
typical
so sounds like
scorpionic
you.
self, that's when I feel empowered.
Oh,
And of
dear.
course, it's me, but it's not necessarily likable me. So it is something to think about. I don't know if there's a lesson there or not.
Well, so as you see, you can answer these questions in a variety of ways, and even if you get a more negative sounding card, that just may fit. This is how people feel empowered, perhaps. And so this is the question deck, and I did get this idea from one of the tarot authors, Mary Kay Greer, who recommended that you create your own question deck, which I did. And so you can do this yourself if you have your own tarot cards or divination thing. Create a question deck and see how your cards would answer these questions. You can just, the more broader the question, or maybe, how should I say, maybe more far-reaching kind of questions, the better, because it can be fun really trying to answer these types of questions. The less specific, I think, the better. I mean, isn't the kind of thing where you would be asking about, your boyfriends or your financial situation or things like that. More global kind of issues.
Gee, Banshee, I think I learned a lot about myself, but perhaps I learned as much about you, too.
Yes. Now you know.
Scary, isn't it?
I think you always knew. If you haven't known by now, Mr. O, I don't know how many more years it would take.
Mr. O. Very good. Well, I think that's probably enough for today's installment of Fun with Banshee's Question Deck. This one is generally on Sundays, right? Or do we do it on Thursdays?
Well, we did.
We have, but I think we're going to try to cordon some of those off to
Are you
each
talking
other.
about the question deck or the fantasy?
Question deck,
Yeah, the question deck we usually do on Sundays.
So we'll be back with that next week. And now I guess it's time for us to do a simulated forecast, what we call fantasy forecast, a simulated tarot reading. So, do you want to use a different deck this time? Or should I use this one again? I have another deck here. I have Paul Hewson's Dame Fortune deck. Can I use that one?
Sure, you can.
Very good. Let's make sure that that card is not there.
Okay.
And I'm going to shuffle a little bit, and then we'll swirl it around. And the goal of Fantasy Forecast is twofold. One is we don't know what we want to read for, unless, of course, somebody suggests that from out there.
It could be something in the news. It could be something about a celebrity. It could be something about, I don't know.
But we're going to use the medium of our cards.
Wherever the cards take us, we go.
Yeah, take us somewhere and then see what kind of reading will come out of that. Depending on how we feel about it, it may be something that is more in the past.
That's right.
It may be about something that's from a very long time ago in a land very far away. Or it may not. Go ahead and shuffle.
Alrighty. So you're still going to spread them out, or?
We swirl them, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. So it's similar to the question deck in that sense.
Well, because we're trying to get a very random card. Sometimes it's good to do that. It's good to just mix the cards up in that fashion. You switch the orders so they're not always in the same position. And you just pull from anywhere instead of the top of the deck. Do you want me to just swirl them from here?
Oh, yes, of course. But you should put them back and then swirl them.
If you insist, I shall do it, Mr. Oberon.
We keep hoping that maybe we'll pull a card we've never pulled before. But
I think we have. We picked a few today. We got the Three of Swords. We got
that's true.
not all good ones, I must say.
I actually mentioned earlier that was the card that we had not pulled yet.
Yep. All right.
So it's kind of interesting. So who or what are we going to read about? Oh, a Queen of Coins. The Queen of Coins. What is the Queen of Coins to us?
The Queen of Coins is about somebody who's very, very keen with financial matters. Also very earthy too. A person with a lot of earth element around them. This could also represent Mother Earth in a way. I think we've went that route before.
There's a resonance that's strong, I think, to the Empress, which of course is a creative personality as well. So the card exemplifies creativity that borders mostly in the realms of prosperity and gain, but not exclusively. But I think those are really the higher points of that energy.
So should we maybe do a rating on, there's been a lot of turbulent times in the markets lately, things of that nature. that, with the tariffs and all of that. Should we do? I think we have done something along those lines already, though, so maybe we shouldn't go there again. But I was thinking in terms of maybe instead we should look at where should people be what should people be investing in right now, whether it is financial or creative pursuits. Maybe we should do it
Okay.
that way. How about that?
So, right, if the card exemplifies investments that come forth from a person's productivity and creative qualities, where does this guide us to consider those investments?
So let's draw a first card and just see what the focus might be, or what it's focusing us
And I want
on.
to pull it this way. The Ten of Batons.
Okay, so perhaps
Whoops.
we should be focusing on our energy on how to alleviate, how to release ourselves from the things that might be holding us back from our creative pursuits, and what might be holding us back from investing more in ourselves or in our financial affairs.
Well, it's possible that because we feel obliged to observe certain conventions, that we may have decided not to look at certain things as being good for us to do that. So part of that is an enlightenment process of saying, can we do something structurally that's beneficial with something that we feel is more of an obligation to?
I'm confused where you're going with that.
Well, a lot of times the card is about servitude and burdens.
Servitude and burdens when it's upright. So, in other words, do you feel that it's a burden to deal with your financial matters and things of that nature, looking to the future and investing in yourself or in your resources? A lot of people, for example, put off saving for retirement and things of that nature. I think I'm well aware of that myself. So, is it a matter of just seems too burdensome right now to think about your resources and your finances and where to put your money? What do you think? Should we
I'm not
focus
sure.
there?
I'm still not
You're not resonating with this?
not as strongly as you are. Maybe. Can you try that again?
Okay. Remember, this is a card of money, possibly investments, somebody who's savvy with that or thinking about those things. This is also somebody who could also be thinking about it, maybe investing themselves in some creative pursuits,
Well, here's what
some
I'm
more
thinking
growthful
is
things.
maybe what they're thinking is now is not the time to make any severe changes, that this is more like hold on in position, holding the status quo as it is,
Well, I
whether
think there's a struggle involved here. It's
okay.
because of the way that he can't manage the burdens that's there. So I think there's a struggle. So let's see what the next card would bring. How bizarre. We have the partner, the King of Coins. And the King of Coins is somebody who is being able to kind of take the reins with their finances and their investments and manage them masterfully. So, this is somebody also who, if there's any creative projects or pursuits in the end, is able to manage them well.
So it's either a matter of the person moving beyond and evolving towards that, or is it
Yes.
seeking somebody more qualified to be your partner or to assist with that?
Well, let's put them in this order here as they've come up. And let's think about this now. In between the two, to get from the queen to the king, you have the struggles and the burdens. And so, if we were looking at this, maybe it's a matter of you have to eliminate the things in your life that are oppressing you and holding you. You have to eliminate those thoughts that are blocking you from achieving financial success or achieving this growthful conclusion to your projects. How do you feel about that?
I agree with that more or less. Now it seems to have more of a context.
It seems like instead of going into some more broader based theme, it's talking to our audience rather than to some more broader social issues or people personalities out there.
that people have to be ready to take on certain burdens and be ready to balance them and struggle with them in order to achieve that final mastery. Okay.
Well, I'm feeling this was not so much a fantasy forecast, like I said, but it might be speaking directly to us or our audience right now that, there's struggles in the progress to financial mastery or creative mastery. It seems like you're at a certain plateau with the Queen, and there's a struggle to achieve ultimate, maybe where you really want to be. You're close.
Close, but not quite there.
Yeah.
Do you think one more card?
Pull one.
The Knight of Wands, the Knight of Batons.
Huh?
So the Knight of Wands influence might be indicating to me that once again, this is a card about somebody who is able to move forward with trust. Somebody who either is yourself or somebody else who is moving the situation forward, confident, trustworthy, appreciative of how things should deploy, where growthful aspects may best be fostered, that kind of thing. Somebody who really brings a shine to proceedings.
The Knight is the Knight of Wands is a very fruitful card in a way. It shows that things are moving towards growth, and so basically, but movement is required. And also it might be that you are making moves towards, around the opposition, the things, I won't say that it's necessarily opposition, but the burdens, the obstacles, that's where I think I was going before, that might be in your path. You have to move beyond them to achieve the ultimate success. And it's interesting that we have all phases of the court cards here, in this reading that we have.
Well, we're at 3 of the 4.
Well, 3 of the 4. We don't have the page because we're not apparently at the beginning. We achieved the Queen, and then we need the movement of the Knight to get towards ultimate mastery.
We're kind of have a synchronicity because there are 2 court cards. Yes. Do
Hi,
you want a
Ceres.
question? Do you want a question now? We can do that now if you want. We're just finishing up here. Ceres has joined us. And there is a subscribe button if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hopefully you should be able to see that somewhere there in the chat area or around that area.
But
maybe
also, if
closer
you
to the
just want a
top.
reading now, absolutely, feel free.
There's also a pairing. Okay, we're going to answer that in a moment. I'm just going to finish real quickly here and just say there was a pairing between 2 coins cards and 2 baton cards. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
As well.
Okay.
right.
Will I reconcile with a Pisces? Okay,
Okay.
Ceres, can you tell us if you are of a particular sign yourself?
Well, of course you are, so.
But can you tell us that? And someone else wants to know if there's a list. Here, I'm going to present some of the information that we have.
Well, hi, Lightning Spark. I'll write you down next.
We have a couple of things going on. We're on Facebook, and I'm showing that there. It's Facebook TFT Tarot for Today. We do a daily reading there, and we also talk about some other things that are related to the tarot and for the art of divination. We're also on Twitter, TFT.
Yes.
The Twitter
it's
address?
the same. It's different for Twitter. It's TFT Tarot with a 4, number 4 today. So that's where we're at Twitter. But I know that Lightning Spark probably wants a reading as well, and I wrote you down on my list here.
So please hang on. Please stick around.
After we're done with the reading for Sari, we will get to you.
And I'm posting right now the stream schedule when we do these. We do it like today from 2 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And then we also do that on Thursday nights from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
I'm going to let you shuffle the cards. And so you're looking for a reconciliation, our first person here. And so let me just take a look and see if I have a nice 3-card spread for that. I've created a number of 3-card spreads. Okay, I have one here that I'm going to try. It's why a relationship or friendship or partnership failed, the situation as it stands now, and and what the future, what the ultimate resolution will be. So if you can bear with us, we will shuffle the card series, and I will we'll see what it says.
A Libra and a Pisces, well, those are not immediately very compatible, but they're not necessarily incompatible. Each would probably be more compatible with either, in the Libra's case, a like air sign, or in Pisces' case, a like water sign. But their crossing the stream, so to speak, are not immediately volatile. And people should remember that in astrology, all of us are composed of aspects of almost all the signs. We all have a little bit of each sign within us. You've cut them?
Yes.
And I am replacing that cut.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to continue a series. And the first position is...
The first position is why the relationship kind of fell apart. And what do we have?
We have the 8 of Cups reversed.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like, well, this is interesting. Possibly, is there somebody else involved that maybe this person has been thinking about going back to? I mean, that's one possibility I see. Because the 8 of Cups is a return, is it not?
It can be a return, but for me also, too, what it looks like is... because certainly when it's upright, it's about a change in values. I think there is a change in values, and I think there's a change in something within oneself. And so this isn't necessarily a return, but it is a shift away from what was. And I'm going to suggest that the shift here is that the person decided they needed to do more functional aspects of their life, or they were more intrigued with working with those. They were thinking about those. Maybe they had a financial or employment situation to work on.
Or is this applying to you in some way?
Well, I'm saying that it applies to somebody.
Right. Well, I'm asking our querent the question.
So in my feeling, it's not necessarily exactly Banshee's feeling, but my feeling is
Close.
that something shifted and a person needed to work on more physical things in their life and less to do with spiritual or emotional things. Second card?
The second card indicates the situation as it stands now.
Where's that deck at?
I don't have it. You
Oh, here it is. Oh, nice.
excuse us. We have the deck.
Okay, you had arguments and separate.
And by the way,
Okay.
this is Ciro Marchetti's Tarot of Dream deck, if anybody is wondering. Absolutely beautiful deck.
What is the position about?
Again, this is the situation as it stands now.
And we pulled the 4 of coins here, and this suggests a person who is definitely, or a situation that definitely sort of has finances at the core. There's a sense here that somebody is either working to hold on to what they perceive as theirs. There's a little sense of maybe it's selfishness, or their self-worth, their self is more important to them right now than other things.
Well, I don't know. There could be that indicate this
It
isn't
sort of goes along with what I said there, doesn't it?
maybe, but I think for me it's indicative of someone who is.
One, two.
Okay, thank you. So it's somebody who is indicative of holding on too tightly to something. Maybe is there some possessiveness involved? Was the arguments involving at all anything about being too possessive or holding on to someone or something too tightly? Did somebody feel that there was some clinginess involved?
So I forget how you exactly explain his position, but this definitely was a movement away from something. So
Okay,
that
let me
maybe is talking about the separation.
Okay. Again, this was why the relationship failed and the situation as it stands now. So I think the situation as it stands now is maybe this is involving, some type of holding on tightly to something and holding on too tightly. Maybe it's even the arguments themselves. Somebody is holding on too tightly to their opinions and their position.
And because the card sort of has a materialistic connotation that what is being held on to has more of a value kind of thing, that it could be
About values.
it could be about values, but could also be thinking that somebody in this situation feels that the other person is owned to some degree, a certain sense of that.
Okay.
Don't want to be blamed and blame each other. Well, that can be true. The third card?
And the third card is what the future holds.
This
Okay.
is a better card. It's the King of Cups. The King of Cups seems to me to talk that there is something better if this is the final result or where the direction is going to. The King of Cups is talking a little bit more about somebody's ultimate good kind of coming out, somebody feeling that they can choose to be more benevolent, that they can choose to be more spiritual or inspiring. So I don't know if that's both of you coming to that realization or if one has to prod the other along. I don't feel this is a card of groveling necessarily. So I do feel that there is something here about conscious raising because this is an ultimate good card in a way. King of Cups is really somebody who defines themselves as much more selfless.
Well, interestingly enough, that you got this card as the find where this is headed or the resolution. The resolution seems to need to be with this person a little bit, and I'm indicating that it could be
You're
the
welcome.
Pisces because it's obviously the cups are water. And I believe that you mentioned Pisces, which is a water sign.
But she's the Libra, or Saris is the Libra, and
Right.
that means that the person is more proposed to being balanced and
If
not
this is talking about Sari, but I'm thinking this is talking about the water sign.
understood. But I'm thinking I'm just going to contrast that by saying that
We're not arguing.
the Libra personality is the one who would more likely promote the concept of balance and justice and fairness.
So at any rate, since I think this is talking about the water sign and the possibly your partner in this situation, I'm getting the sense that they may come around. There may be a positive resolution, but that person has to come to terms with something on an emotional level.
Well, I kind of agree with that, but I'm just thinking, Sarah, is that the Libra in you is going to bring that about in the Piscean person that we're talking about. That you, as a Libra, will bring forth those qualities of justice or balance.
That's an awesome comment there.
Well, there you go.
And
I like
agree.
that. Because you know what? Libra and Pisces are both the dual signs of the zodiac. You both are represented, well, Gemini too, but Libra is represented by a dualness. Pisces is also represented by a dual nature.
Well, and you know what? We all know in arguments there's two sides to every argument. Sometimes there's a weightedness, some people are more right than wrong in an argument, but it takes two to argue, and it's going to take two to resolve that.
Pisces are hard to get into their emotions because sometimes they're too emotional and they tend to go off the deep end, or to some people they may go off the deep end. But on the other hand, there's probably a certain type of Pisces who is a little bit more afraid of that appearance of losing control. And I'm not saying this about the Piscean person we're talking about, but some Pisceans, the struggle is so hard that they may end up finding delusions or things that corroborate their not dealing with it, maybe they're of an addictive nature. Maybe they find interests that pull them away from that and allow them to feel other things instead of dealing with the matter at hand. I still think that kind of we're right there. Any other advice?
You asked if there was any other advice, and I drew some Lenormand cards for you. And normally I only draw through two, but I felt that the two I drew were a little bit inconclusive, so I drew a third card. And I want to show them. I'm going to have Oberon show them. One is the mice. And the one following it, I want to show them all now, is the book. And the third card is the rider. And what I'm indicating here is the mice oftentimes indicates loss or things that are eating away at something. You know, the mice, they nibble at stuff and mess with your food and things in your cabinets, and you have to throw everything out in the process. And the book is right next to it. And I feel that what it's telling me is that there's something that you don't know. The book is here and you need more information. You don't have a lot of information to proceed on right now. And I do think with the writer here that news is coming. There's some news that's going to come to you, maybe from your partner, that may give you a step in the right direction, but it may also indicate what the problems are. Maybe it will give you some of the information that you were lacking in order to bring this conflict to a resolution. What do you think?
Well, as I keep saying, the Lenormand, which is sort of like a very old-fashioned fortune-telling deck, is not my forte, but I do work with symbols and pictures, and I get images from them, and I sort of feel Banshee's right. The mice, I sort of feel, is not necessarily an evil, but an unfriendly presence that maybe attempts to take away things from you or that impinges upon aspects of you. And it is next to the book, so maybe this is saying that there are attitudes or things in play that kind of divert you from thinking this through, thinking through the knowledge aspects. So maybe this is saying that you're holding on to an emotionality that sometimes conflicts with you being able to rationally think about where you're going. And then the writer itself says that if you clear that hurdle, then maybe you'll have more of a direction to follow through and focus on.
He's doing this very intuitively, and he does very well. And I love the way he calls this a old-fashioned deck. The tarot is not. The tarot's even.
Oh my!
I think the tarot predates the Lenormand by a bit, but at any rate, I use some different tools when I divinate, and so I like to throw a Lenormand for some more information from time to time. Well, I'll tell you what, sorry, this is all we're going to give you right now, but I mean, this is not a shameless self-promotion to get you to subscribe, but if you want to check with us maybe in a week to see what else we might be able to reveal then, I'd give it about a week before I ask this question again.
Yeah, we'd be happy to ask that question or another question a week from now or so.
But we also live stream on Thursdays, so if you have any other questions for us, you might want to check with us again.
Thank you for subscribing.
And Lightning Spark, are you still with us?
If you are, we're going to take you up right now.
Well, and so we are doing all these. Okay, great. Sorry. We hope to see you again.
You're very welcome.
Talk to you again, I should say. I can't actually see you.
Okay, and Lightning Spark, can I ask,
there.
what are Evelyn's intentions with you?
Okay. So I'm going to look and see if I have a reading for that.
I will say that beyond the whole idea that each zodiac sign tends to straddle 2 months, and so, for example, in the case of a Scorpio, Libra Scorpios tend to be, October Scorpios tend to be different from November Scorpios. But I also find
Cancer Scorpio, that's usually a good combo, isn't it?
It is a good combo. I'm just making a general statement about Scorpios and about the signs in general, that I personally feel for myself that male Scorpios are also somewhat different from female Scorpios. And I don't know, to me, I sort of chalk that up to the idea that certain signs or certain people who have weights in certain signs they're usually a little bit harder within the context of our culture, American culture. So my best example of that is that I always felt that a particular guy or two I know who was a Cancer, they had a harder time being an emotional person like a Cancer is, because our society doesn't like men to be as emotional
Well,
as
but
women.
then again, I hate to go into gender at all in our readings,
Well,
per
I'm just
se.
talking about that from the perspective
Sure.
of
I
qualities
understand.
that are associated with more feminine or more masculine.
Lightning Spark, I just want to bring this up to you and see if this reading that I have in mind resonates with you. We're going to draw 3 cards, and one will be the feelings about the love or the relationship, the current situation as it stands, and the next steps towards the relationship. Actually, you also want to know, actually, maybe we should do it differently. Maybe we should do this one instead. I'm sorry, Lightning Spark. How about this one? Your attitude towards this person's attitudes towards you, and where things are headed. Does that sound appropriate? If that does, I think we'll go with it.
Okay, so we're going to use this deck again.
And basically, if you're wondering what's going on here, I have a notebook of almost 200 spreads that I've created for myself, and I've created a number of 3-card spreads that may or may not be appropriate. Sometimes we just kind of go with the flow of things, and we decide.
We're going to go with the latter one since you think we could do whichever's best.
Okay.
Did you already shuffle those?
I did.
Okay, so I'm
you
going to
are
go
the one to
ahead
cut.
and cut them. So the first card, once you complete that, is about your attitude about them.
Correct.
And then the second card, well,
Is-
we'll do the first one.
Yes.
Okay, so the first one, your attitude about them. The 7 of Wands.
That's a very interesting card. Do you feel like you're more dominant in this relationship right now in some way? That you are the driving force here in some way?
Well, if not that per se, I also feel too that maybe there's just at least some advantages or some knowledge you have that sort of gives you a different level a little bit. It may not necessarily mean that you are superior or that everything enacts superior, but there's a different leveling between you two, and it could be for some reason. Okay, you're just close
We're
friends.
just close friends, but I do like her. Okay. So maybe you might be feeling, I'm still feeling, maybe you do feel like, if things are going to move forward, you possibly are the one who is going to make those first moves.
But I that could be, but I sort of feel that in general there's a different leveling between you. Like maybe the analogy would be that maybe there's something that really separates you in your friendship because of where you work at or how you go to school or something like that.
Okay, I like what you said here, that you feel a strong connection. And maybe also this is what I'm seeing is you're standing on the upper ground. That's what this card kind of shows.
That's
the
a good
7
point.
of Wands. And maybe you do feel that this is a person or a situation, maybe a relationship worth fighting for and taking to a new level.
Well, it could be too that you clearly feel that focus that puts you up there looking down at them or looking across at them or however you want to view that. So the next card is going to say, how are they looking at you?
Yes, how are they looking at you right now?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Oh dear. Well, maybe this card is saying that their intentions towards you are a lot more in the sense of romantic or to some part of that range of romantic. I mean, in our modern era, we sometimes have differing opinions about things. Some people date a lot of people. Some people date just a few people. Some people only date one person. But this could be saying that Evelyn looks at you as something more than just a casual friend to some degree.
I'm going to also throw a little wrench in this here, just because I do sometimes. And the Lover's card can also indicate sometimes choices. So I have to ask you, Lightning Spark, is there anybody else in her life that she's close to?
Yes, that could be absolutely what it says, is that maybe from her point of view, Evelyn's point of view, there is a sense of having a different kind of connection, because maybe they look at you more like the friend and there's somebody else they look at more like the potential lover.
With yes, she's actually with someone. I should have mentioned that.
That's
I got
fine.
this feeling when this card was drawn, because
Interesting.
oftentimes this indicates choices, and obviously, sexual or relationship, romantic choices. So, and especially since it came up in her position, I wondered if that's what's going on. So, all right, let's draw the final card, which is where things are headed between this. Well, let's just see where things are headed before I say it's between the two of you.
No, don't come through here.
We have a cat, and I fear that the camera might fall. So,
At long last, one of our cats decided to join us today.
this one is Shadow. All right, what is the final card?
Okay.
Oh,
I was just
but
looking
they're still
at
together.
Some of this, yes. Okay, the final card is the Three of Swords.
Okay.
Was this about them too?
This is where things are headed. And so I do feel like, well, I'm just going to be blunt about what I feel here, Lightning Spark, and I would say that there could be some sorrows attached to pursuing this further on an emotional level. Maybe this is something that you're going to have to think about here. There may be a strong connection between the two of you, but right now it looks as though if you try to make things go into, a direction of a relationship, it may fail at this time. There may be sorrows attached to this. How do you feel about that?
Well, somebody may be having that, but it's
Heartbreak.
not totally clear to me that it's between Evelyn and your own feelings that are going on there, which are not necessarily solidified as a relationship per se, but this could be the idea that maybe there is a breakup for her with that person. It could be about that.
It would involve a breakup or a heartache for it to go further, I would say that.
Three of Swords is often about separations, and they're very heartfelt. Aren't they usually?
Yeah.
So it could be either way. I mean, I'm not sure now, because maybe, have you sensed maybe that there's some friction there and that there is the possibility of a parting between them?
Okay, that doesn't try to show feelings or act on them. Okay, I would just say from the Lenormand cards I've drawn that I would say that this is not a wise choice to make right now as to pursuing anything further with this person. You may have some feelings, and also this person may have some to you. But right now, the fox is saying to be very, how should I say, clever, or use a lot of subterfuge in how you manage the situation. No overt actions. Very covert and sly is how you should approach this. In other words, I think you should keep this to yourself for now, because something may be afoot. Either this person is going to move on to somebody else. This is the crossing card, or the
person
cross.
Evelyn's with?
Maybe, or this could be that they are moving away from your environment in some way, or will be. Or it might even indicate that you will be moving on. And this should happen rather suddenly. So I don't know what that means. Like maybe
That card is the Whip.
The Whip, which means something happening fast, rapidly, or aggressively. And so I'm almost thinking that something could nip your ideas in the bud. Like, for example, they may deepen their relationship and, I'm not going to say get married, but, become more firmer together. And that may just nip your ideas right in the bud. Or this person may be moving out of your environment in some way, or you may be moving on. Maybe there will be somebody else entering your environment where you will feel you have to move on.
I, due to my not necessarily familiarity with these cards, I don't necessarily get strong images. I sort of feel the fox is something that's on the run, sort of it represents some cleverness, but it also represents a furtiveness too. that maybe something's going on that you're trying to keep covert. I think you said that sort
Well,
of
you know what this could mean in some extent is the fox, depending on what cards they're around, but they're not around the right cards, could be an affair, something happening under the table sort of thing. But I'm not seeing that here, other than it could mean an end to such a thing because number 36 is there. So, in other words, if you were having an affair with this person, it could be coming to an abrupt end.
But it doesn't really sound like that from
No.
what Lightning Spark has said. So
Right.
it could mean that that's the other situation, that affair is coming to an end.
I'm not seeing that because of
Okay.
these other cards.
Right.
But you know what? The reason we read together here is also to provide our viewing audience and the people with questions options. You can listen to what both of us are telling you and kind of determine what really resonates with you. I may be more right than him, he may be more right than me, and sometimes we both cross the streams and come together on what we have to say.
It's always hope.
So that's why we thought it would be interesting for us to both read in tandem and give our viewing audience more possible things to think about, because really, in the end, it's kind of gestalt. You yourself come up with the solutions and where you should go from the type of things that you're hearing from us here.
I do feel that how this all works out will be sudden and abrupt, whether it's an ending that occurs between Evelyn and the other person, or just the ending, a resolution of how you two choose to do your relationship, agree to be friends, agree to be good friends, or always have this undercurrent. I do think it's going to happen quickly. I'm sort of agreeing with Banshee that maybe at this point it's not going to really move forward the way you think it is, but maybe it's going to continue as this kind of semi-abstract, strong, semi-unconscious bond with each other.
We're going to have to end our live stream soon, but you asked one more question, and I'd like to get to that.
Okay.
Let's just draw one card from the top and see what it says, I say.
Okay.
So whatever it is, let's see. I don't know. Does she feel that maybe that she's worried about that you might be a little bit too possessive or overwhelming for her in some way? I wonder about that a little bit.
This could be more too that they're thinking there's a material preoccupation, that maybe they look at you and they think you're more about acquisition than they are. You're more about owning things than they are. I'm not making a value judgment. I don't know that owning things is necessarily good or bad. It depends on what you do with them. But some people might be looking at that a little differently.
Something else just popped into my head that I'm going to throw out there is I don't know how serious she is with this other person, but maybe she's looking to not be serious at this time, and she fears that being with you, there's the potential that, it could get serious and overwhelming. She doesn't want to be overwhelmed with a serious relationship at this time. That is a possibility of what I see there.
Okay. And I feel compelled to draw another card just to see if we can embroider on that a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull one final card for you to go back with this idea here of what
and then
Evelyn
we must
may be thinking of
conclude.
you. Yeah, and then we're pretty much at the end of our broadcast. And I have drawn the Two of Swords. And so what I'm thinking is that to some degree, it's still a possibility because maybe they have not decided yet. And that the decision rests upon the idea that there is not truly enough known, that maybe Evelyn doesn't feel there's something that they know well enough about you. And I'm wondering if maybe, being the fox, that maybe there's something you're cleverly hiding or you cleverly have not been forthcoming about. I'm not saying you've been covert or secretive, but that there's something that they're just not perceiving about you because you have a facade of sorts about you. You're thinking I'm off the target here.
Oh, no. But what I'd like to say on this one is with the two is a very balanced card, but it also, the Two of Swords to me indicates stalemate. Not much movement is happening right now in this situation, and I don't foresee anything changing really soon, except, like I said, maybe with the Lenormand, you got to be cautious here that there could be some potential breakup or ending or her moving out of your sphere. But I feel as far as a movement towards a relationship goes, there's a stalemate right now. And so nothing is really moving forward. So it's a time of things staying where they are.
Right.
And I think we have to conclude it at that. But Lightning Spark, like we told Sari, if you're interested in checking out in another week or so, because the cards, like life, can change and morph, and we can see what the cards hold then. So feel free to subscribe and come back and ask us again. And also, we would really like to hear from you if things change and we were right about something, we were
You're
wrong.
welcome
We
for the
definitely
reading.
would like your feedback.
You're very welcome for the reading.
You are welcome.
So we're concluding now, and we're just going to remind people about some things.
I would like to add that usually at the end of our broadcasts, we pull the card for the next day, the tarot for tomorrow. But obviously, we don't have
We
time
kinda
for
ran
that
out of time
today.
for that.
But if you join our Facebook page, you'll be able to read tonight. Our tarot for tomorrow will be on there if you're interested in a one-card reading for the day ahead, for global, kind of more global outlook sort of reading for
We
everyone.
do that every day at our Facebook page, TFT Tarot for Today. We usually do it in the evening, and it's a projection for the next day. So you're welcome to look at those, make comments, like them, like our
Thank you,
page,
Lightning Spark,
please.
for subscribing.
Thank you for subscribing. We appreciate that. You can also just leave us a message there. And we want to, once again, as always, thank our producers, the people that help us there. Also, too, we're open to receiving tarot deck producers to possibly share some of their stuff with us, and we would promote them with
You mean share their
attribution.
cards and decks so
That
we could
kind of
use
thing,
them
right.
on our live streams? Absolutely. And also, I want to remind people we have a Gmail address as well, so feel free to write to us there. We can correspond with you. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody again Thursday night for our next live broadcast.